everybody. Welcome to an exciting episode of the Stash Report from the Stash Project. Today is the 12th of February, 2016, and it's a little show, I guess would be the best way to put it. We have not gotten several of the March reissues that we're March releases that we were kind of expecting as far as news goes. Actually, I don't believe... Yep, not really any news that has come in this week, as it turns out. We do have a couple of updates on a few, pending projects as far as new kit releases, and then we have this week's set of announced kit releases. There's a couple of domestic things, and it is majority. It's all Asian for the most part. So it's a little brighter in here. Ooh, severe shadows, but I replaced the overhead single socket light bulb with a one of those daytime equivalent compact fluorescents, and it's made the thing a little bit brighter in here. Normally I have another lamp on right here that also has a daytime equivalent in it, which would probably make this place a little bit brighter. However, today I went out and I ran and got myself a great big 4-foot LED shop light, and this seemed like a bright idea to me. So holy mackerel, is that bright. Basically, it is the equivalent of installing Jesus in your ceiling. It's a little bit almost too bright. Look at how bright that is. Wow. But from a working standpoint of actually being here, man, it's fantastic. I actually plan to get another one, put it over on the other side of the room, and that'll sort of sufficiently brighten the other side, and it'll end up looking like an operating suite in here, or something resembling perhaps one of those white panel rooms that do paint inspections on real high-end sports cars. So yeah, that's the new thing. That's one of the first upgrades to the shop here. I've actually got to get a junction box put in up there so I can actually plug things in. I have a really, really old basement. We've discussed this before if you've ever watched these videos from the very, very, very beginning. I have an old house, and my outlets are the kind that you screw into the light receptacles, and that's not really a 3-prong outlet, and this thing takes a 3-prong, so I've got a 2 to 3 that's not grounded to anything. I don't leave this on, obviously, so I'm not really worried about anything burning down per se, but I'd like to get an actual junction box so I can plug these two things in. Plus, that's the whole wiring of a paint booth and stuff for my airbrush and stuff. So, at any rate, back to the actual matter at hand here. Some of the things we're sort of hearing a little bit about this week. This is a bunch of things from Fujimi. The one thing of interest there is the van in behind the ships, and it's sort of the top board there. If you look at the display there, this is going to be the new Toyota Alphard and Veilside minivan, full-size van that Toyota sells only in Japan and a couple other places as well. They don't import this van to the United States. It is not like the Estima or the I'm trying to think what the Previa was called over there that we also got their sort of minivan, but the Alphard is their full-size van, and Fujimi will be doing basically 2 kits of this. They're going to be based on the same tooling, basically. Just a few external parts are going to be what makes it different. The Veilside is sort of the sportier, quote-unquote, van that's marketed towards a younger crowd, sort of the 30s, soccer mom, soccer dad kind of crowd. And the Alphard's more of a, luxury van for when you need something like that. Looks like it's going to be about a 40, 50-part snap-tight kit. This was something that Fujimi has done before in regards to things like their R34 GTR is a snap-tight kit. Several of the K cars like the Suzuki Alto, the Daihatsu Mira, the Daihatsu Liza, the Lamborghini Diablo series of kits are also sort of kind of snap-tights. They basically almost assemble with poly caps, actually. more than a actual snap-tight kit like you consider like a Revell kit that actually has parts that snap together. Although there are parts that, of course, do snap together, but a lot of the things in the in those kits also basically have a polycap receptacle like your mountain tires, and then there's a peg on the bottom of whatever the part is, and it mounts that way, probably so the things aren't permanently assembled, perhaps. It's a uniquely Fujimi thing as far as I've ever seen. It may be something that was done by other companies that are no longer in business, but it's not something I've ever seen in an old Oshima kit or an old Tamiya kit. I'm trying to see here. I got to do my releases by what's new and what's reissued, so I have to look at something there. The other thing we've heard about, finally, and this is something I'm kind of getting more and more excited about as time goes on, and this is a little flyer that Bell Kits had put up on their Facebook page, and the Escorts are officially on the water. So if you go to Bell Kits Facebook page and just go search Bell Kits on Facebook, that'll get you there. You can actually live track the ship. Now, it won't be like literal live tracking like FedEx or the Postal Service. It'll basically tell you where it's due next and when it leaves, and it's not like real time unless you pay marine traffic, to have a subscription. Then you could track boats in real time for some reason. God, has to be one of the more boring things ever. At least FlightAware, you can track planes in real time, and they're actually going someplace in a quarter, over the course of a couple of hours. Last time I looked at it, it still had to dock one more place in Japan, or one more place in China at least, and that was supposed to take place this weekend. And as you can see here, it's supposed to be arriving in Belgium sometime in the middle of March, and then the kits will be out in the end of March. I got a couple Escorts because I thought I'd do one as a liveried car, which are one I liked better when I actually got the decals to see how complex the masking would be, and then I would do the other one as sort of like a retired car. And then Reiji Models decided they were going to do their decal sets. I started looking through them, and the first ones they're going to be doing is also the one that I wanted to get. And it turns out that I believe is another Timo Malkinen car that won the 1974 Mirror Rally championship. And I was looking at them going, well, if you build both the kits the way they come, that's the 72 and the 73, and now this decal set will allow you to build a 74, and so I pre-ordered another Escort, and so I think I'm actually going to build 3 of them now at some point, and do the 72, 73, 74 winners, just because why not at this point. I hoard kits, and that's just the way it is. I have no shame in that. At some point, I'll look back at that decision and go, why did I buy 3 of them? I never built any of them, but at the moment, yeah. So, what's come out this week? Like I said, we have nothing else new to talk about here. Domestically, a couple of round 2 reissues. They are, whoops, I turned it off instead of pausing it. There we go. The 1969 Barracuda reissue. This is under the MPC marketing label. This is an original 1969 box art recreation, so if you are shopping for one, make sure you get the ones that say the Retro Deluxe if you're going the eBay route or something like that where you can't see it in your hand. These are molded in white, and they tooled up some more, didn't tool up any new parts, but apparently they've restored a few old parts from the original MPC boxing of this era. I don't know what those parts are because I never specifically detailed listed them, and I've never had an original one of these to know what was missing in the late 80s version that I did have way back when I was a kid. But this has restored parts, new decal sheet, obviously the vintage box art. I think it has one of those mini boxes in it. And they've also thrown a set of vintage mag wheels that are not original to this kit in. And that was one of the things you can tell from the bottom of the box parts layout, because everything is in your normal 1960s round 2 configuration of just a bunch of random parts attached to little shots of runner. And then there's this really nicely formatted, I don't know how nice the wheels are, I haven't seen them, but nicely formatted as far as the shape and the design, new set of wheels on a runner. It looks very Japanese as far as how the outline of the part looks. Now, that doesn't mean they're attached by polycaps. That doesn't mean they're Japanese wheels. But the design of them, just looking at a shadow box of them, looks very Asian in the way the wheels are designed. The other kit that is out of round 2 is the Lucinda Lewis Car Culture 57 Chevy Bel Air. This is a reissue of the factory stock version of this kit. It's 100. Well, we'll say 150. I think it's actually 100. Yeah, 160 parts. Photo etch. You've got a 12-page booklet from the Lucinda Lewis on car culture. I don't know exactly what that's going to entail, but this is the new toolkit. I again saw the shadow part layout on the bottom, and it's the new kit. The frame was not separate from the chassis on the old school tooling, so this is the new toolkit that they did in the 90s. It's molded in white or molded in red. If this picture obviously is the molded in white one. The molded in red ones have a red sticker with white printing that says molded in red on them. Of course, they should also have on the end caps what color they're molded in, and they should also, on the bottom of the box, will say all parts other than the black rubber tires and chrome are molded in black. So, I don't want to hear anyone ever complain about these. If you happen to go buy one of these and you don't have an original one from the 90s or subsequent reissues, that you got one in the wrong color because you just weren't paying attention at that point. And then that's really all we have domestically. There's one more round 2 kit to come out, and then we should have the Revell kits in stock probably next week on your sort of preferred retailer program that they do, and then of course the end of the month for everything else. There is one Revell of Germany kit that came out in Japan this week. I'm not going to go into a whole big thing on it right now because I'll do that when it's released here in the United States. But that is the Sauce Ant, the Flying Duck, or whatever they call it, version of the Citroen 2CV. I finally found somebody who actually bought one because most people were just like, whatever. It's the same 2CV Charleston kit that came out several years ago with a different set of decals in it to make a German-specific version of the Citroen 2CV. I personally don't have any plans to ever get one because of that. It's not anything new. But, it's out there if you want to get it through either Japan or perhaps Europe. Like I said, it will not have an official U.S. distribution here until probably next month or maybe April. If you've followed along with the game long enough, you know that Revell here in the United States doesn't distribute Revell of Germany stuff the same time that they actually release it in Germany. So that takes us overseas. On the Japan side of things, this is the quote-unquote new kit for the week. This is a reissue of the Type 2 delivery van. Keep in mind, Hasegawa is a curbside. It does not full detail like the Revell of Germany one. This one done in the Egg Girls Happy Valentine's Day scheme. So once again, if you wish to, in this case, make a red and pink anime schoolgirl van, this would be your opportunity for that. This also solves a long contending debate as to whether or not the Egg Girls meant that they are, American on the outside and Asian on the inside, which is a sort of slang, not necessarily insulting, but slang way of saying, describing someone who is American and Asian, or the egg planes that Hasegawa does. And this, of course, on the door, egg plane girls. So that's what I thought originally, because these girls seem to be involved in a lot of the advertising for the egg planes, and that is, in fact, what this whole series is about. So if you wish to have your egg plane sponsored, you can now have them have a crew van, or at least a cargo van. It's not, technically, you need the one they did last year, when a crew van. This is more of a cargo van. And then we have a number of Aoshima reissues this week. This is the Nissan Cedric Y30. This is a 1980s version of Cedric in the Turbo Brougham VIP format. Also reissued the Nissan Cedric 330. This is an early 1970s version, early to mid 1970s, in the four-door hardtop 2000 SGLE version. Both of these are Beskar vintage kits, so be aware of the fact that you're dealing with motorized chassis and all the funness that goes along with that. They're reissuing, once again, the old IMA, oddly not scaled in 124, more like 122nd, London black cab. This has a sort of an engine piece insert doohickey, if you're about any of the 90s Fujimi kits that had an engine insert, but the hood was molded closed kind of thing. Actually, I don't think the hood is molded closed on this, but it doesn't have a full engine. It just sort of has the top of one. So it's not technically a curbside, because technically this is also not an Aoshima kit. It's an old IMA kit. And like I said, for the love of God, if you listen to nothing else about this kit, it is not actually 124 scale. It is much larger than that. This will not look right next to anything else. I know a lot of people were really excited when Revell of Germany reissued this kit. The tooling has been shared with Revell of Germany a number of times, so don't go buying that one either thinking that's a workaround, because it's the exact same kit, just in a different box. Because, Revell of Germany obviously did that giant bus, the double-decker London bus, and a lot of people were like, ooh, London Black Cab, I can have all my public transportation. And it doesn't work because they're not the same scale. This is much larger. So consider yourself forewarned. Also a very, very old kit, and why it's in the Beskar vintage. A couple more old kits that have been reissued. This, the 1970 Nissan Skyline 2000 GT. When you talk about the first-gen Skyline four-door kits, it is sort of a pair of snails racing as far as who's better, because Aoshima's got theirs and Fujimi has theirs. I prefer Fujimi's just for the fact that while they're both on really, really crude old 1970s, 1980s chassis, Aoshima's is really motorized in the sense that it still carries the old carriage and the switch and the battery box and everything else like that. And while Fujimi's is very simplified and very basic and poorly engraved, it's not that bad. It's not quite as bad as the Aoshima one is. Also, this is also a Beskar vintage kit as well, because all of the Skyline kits that Aoshima did up to somewhere in the R32 range, or I should say the R33 range, somewhere in there, were all based on the same exact chassis. They all have the same thing underneath, regardless of what the body was. This is the 4-valve double overhead cam RS Turbo Super Silhouette. This is a Japanese, what is known as Super GT now, and it was known as the Japanese Grand Touring Car or something like that. It had some weird name. It was JGTC or JCGT, whatever. But this is before that. This is an early 1980s race car. It's a fairly famous driver and whatnot, but it is a really basic kit. It doesn't. Don't expect to get a Murcielago RSV or a McLaren Longtail out of this, because that is not at all what you're going to get. You're going to get a racing version of a motorized kit. Also reissued this week, the RN30 mid-80s Toyota Hilux in the lowrider packaging, and also the Toyota Hilux Surf Wide, also known here as a Toyota 4Runner. This is a 1991 specification. The kit does include all of the left-hand drive parts that came in the American Satco 4Runner kit. They were tooled up for the kit, so they're not actually, something that American Satco did themselves. But there are no 4Runner decals included. Also, the Nissan Terrano R3M. This also a left-hand drive tooled kit, was sold by American Satco as the Nissan Pathfinder that it is. And, know several people who have tried to hack this up and turn it into a hard-body pickup truck. It's a very popular, attempt for that conversion. I'm surprised nobody ever did a resin kit of the, if somebody make a really, really decent version of it and cast it in resin. But as far as I know, that's never been done, or at least it's not been done since back in the day when this kit originally came out. Again, all the left-hand drive parts, wipers, interior, all that stuff is in here, but there are no Pathfinder decals, so you're stuck with the Japanese domestic market Terrano, markings as far as that goes. And I guess that's probably about it. This is a little bit more light, actually, in one spot than we need as far because it's kind of glary now. It doesn't, but it's because of the LED factor, but it's not really bad shadows. So that's what I kind of like about the light. It's not. intensely shot of the way some other lights would be if you had this much light shining down on you. I'll do finally the video of a crate here in a second as far as what I've gotten recently in kits, and we're going to try the other camera in a little different angle and see if that's a little more conducive. Actually, I think right now the only big problem I have is these, whoops, wrong hand. These kits right here, these Tamiya kits, these white boxes are really, really glary to me, but hopefully with another light and a few more adjustments here, we'll finally have an actually halfway decent lighting setup, and everybody won't be complaining if things look too dark. So consider it a work in progress, but I'm happy because now I can see what I'm doing on my work surface. So, yeah, many more kits to come out probably this week and next. And we, of course, like we said last week, we will be in Columbus for BlizzCon, the IPMS convention, there next Saturday. There's several people that have said that, hey, I look forward to seeing you. If you see me, come up and say hi. More than likely, we'll have a blue hat on. I haven't decided if I'm going to wear the one from my job that I have now or the job I just had, but you've seen the hats. I have a Delalo hat, and I have one that says Rice Energy on it. I'm at a disadvantage to a great number of you because you know what I look like, and I don't know what you look like. So if you see me at the show, come up and say hi, because I'm certainly not going to be all like offended that you're talking to me. Probably spend the majority of my day over at the Buckeye Scale Auto Parts booth. Michael Newport, who sells wheels and tires and various other model accessories, will be there with a table. And I enjoy my friends who vend because then I have a seat and I can sit down for most of the day and I don't have to sit around pacing for 8 hours like everybody else does. So. At any rate, that's what's going on this week. Next month, by the way, if you are in the same general vicinity, the Tricon, which is the Pittsburgh IPMS show, is March the 12th as a Saturday. I believe that's the right date. Let me double check here. Yeah, March the 12th. And then the following day, March the 13th, is the South Hills Modelers Association 8th annual show. That is the club that I personally belong to. And so if you're going to be in Pittsburgh for Tricon, don't forget to stay over or come back the next day and come to our show as well. If you're from a little bit out of town, make a weekend out of it. Pittsburgh is a very nice place, very beautiful city, lots of stuff to do to keep you busy as far as the night. We've got all sorts of entertainment and whatnot in the cities and around, and we hope to see some of you guys who maybe don't normally come out here to give you another option. We've had our show, usually it's the week before or 2 weeks before the Buckeye Classic, the automotive club that does their show in March as well, but we moved ours forward one weekend because we've had some pretty lousy weather the last 2-3 years in a row, and we're trying to figure maybe we push it a little further into spring. Hopefully we'll have a decent weekend. So if you're coming to Pittsburgh, you have a weekend of building, weekend of modeling anyway, model shows to go to. Give you an option of something to do to get you out of the house that in March for shows. I think there's something else that's local. I'm just babbling now, but now this has sort of got me off track here. Buckeye Scale Classic is the following weekend on the 20th of March. So much model shows coming up locally here in the next couple months. So at any rate, we'll see you guys on the other side.